Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at our annual general meeting of the Home Construction Regulatory Authority. I'm Mark Rappold, and I have the pleasure of being chair of our HCRA Board of Directors. And on behalf of our whole HCRA, I want to extend a warm welcome to everyone who has joined our 2024 annual meeting. This is the first annual meeting we've been able to have on site from our own offices, and we understand not everyone can join us in person. Thank you so much to those who have, but we have a hybrid meeting again this year, and we have viewers joining us online, and I want to take the opportunity to welcome them very much to our meeting. I'll begin our meeting by acknowledging we're on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. This territory is now also home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Together, let's take a moment and acknowledge the importance of the lands we each call home. We thank all generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. As the regulator of Ontario's home building industry, the HCRA is committed to increased public engagement with all stakeholders to ensure an ethical and thriving new home construction sector across our province. This includes the nearly 7,000 licensed builders and sellers whose professional standards we regulate and enforce, and vitally important, the new home purchasers and other consumers whose protection is our core mandate. The HCRA is working hard to build relations across the sector with real estate officials, building officials, home inspectors, government, and other stakeholders to protect the public and enhance the professionalism in the home building industry. Our meeting today will provide an update on the progress we've made over the past fiscal year. Following the formal portion of the annual meeting, we will transition to a live question and answer period, and we'll provide some more information about this later. I'm sure many of you joining today know a little about HCRA, but let me provide a brief overview of our role and our responsibilities. In 2021, the HCRA was designated by the Government of Ontario to administer and enforce our New Home Construction Licensing Act and its associated regulations. This made the HCRA responsible for regulating and licensing the people and companies who build and sell new homes in the province. Our core mandate is to protect consumers so they can make informed decisions in one of the biggest purchases of their lives, their new home. The Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery and Procurement is the ministry responsible for our legislation and the oversight of our organization. In addition to licensing, the HCRA enforces a code of ethics and holds builders to professional standards. We manage and review builder conduct complaints through a fair, transparent, and evidence-based process. As I mentioned, protecting consumers is our top priority. One of our goals is to provide resources to new and prospective home buyers, including the Ontario Builder Directory. It provides background information about home builders and sellers across the province. The HCRA also works to curtail illegal building and selling, those who operate without a license, which puts the public at risk and creates an uneven playing field for the industry. I hope this high-level summary was helpful, and with that, I'd like to officially call our meeting to order. This is the second annual meeting of the HCRA to be held in person, and I express my sincere appreciation to the board members for their dedication and their great guidance over this past year. Collectively, our board members bring a strong blend of skills and experience and qualifications in consumer protection, business, and government, and they are committed to fulfilling the HCRA's mandate with transparency and accountability. Let me take a moment to introduce them to you, and you will see them on screen. Av Maharaj is our Vice Chair and Chair of our Finance, Audit and Risk Committee. Mary Cardis-Burton is Chair of our Governance, People and Culture Committee. And also on our board, Salvatore Biasucci, Rinku Deswell, and I will say Rinku's unable to be present with us tonight. She had an unavoidable commitment, but we're very grateful. She's made it possible to be with us online and is participating as a board member in our meeting this evening. Hugh Herron, Virginia West, and Terrence Young. That's our current board complement. The directors of the HCRA are corporation members, and they're the ones entitled to speak to and vote on the resolutions presented today. James Ryu is the HCRA's General Counsel, and he will act as Secretary for this meeting. I can confirm proper meeting notice was given and a quorum of members is present. With that, it's my pleasure to call this annual meeting of members to order. This meeting is open to the public, and once again, we welcome everyone who's joined us. I also want to express my sincere appreciation to the staff of the HCRA and all the stakeholders and partners who support our organization, and this includes, of course, Minister Todd McCarthy and the Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery and Procurement. Our first item of business is the approval of the meeting agenda and approval of the minutes of last year's annual meeting. The agenda and the minutes were distributed to members with the notice of the meeting. May I have a motion to approve the agenda and minutes? I see Av so moves, Terrence seconds. Thank you for that. And all members, please, by a show of hands, vote regarding this resolution. Thank you. I declare the motion carried. It's now my great pleasure to introduce a special guest on video. The Honourable Todd McCarthy is Ontario's Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery and Procurement, the ministry that the HCRA reports to. Minister McCarthy was appointed to his ministry in September 2023 and has served as the MPP for the Durham riding since 2022. He is also a well-respected and established lawyer in the province. So we're delighted to welcome him, and I'd ask that we start our video.
Good day, everyone. On behalf of Ontario's Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery and Procurement, I'm honored to have this opportunity to offer a few words on the occasion of your 2024 annual meeting. Over the past year, HCRA has continued to advance consumer protections for home buyers in Ontario and ensure that the industry is regulated in a fair and professional manner. The work of HCRA is vital to the accountability our province's home construction sector must have, and I thank you for your dedication to the people of Ontario. As you know, our government has set an ambitious goal to build 1.5 million new Ontario homes over the next decade. Our province is growing, and our housing inventory must keep pace with the large number of people making Ontario their home. And in that vein, I would say that it is our duty to provide Ontarians with a housing market that is safe, transparent, and accountable. That is why this year our government was proud to enact new legislation to strengthen protections for homeowners and home buyers. The Homeowner Protection Act 2024 ensures Ontarians have the time and the tools they need to make a confident choice when spending their hard-earned money on what is often the most important and largest purchase of their lives. From banning consumer nosies to implementing a cancellation disclosure policy to establishing a 10-day cooling-off period, we are working together with key partners like yourselves through this legislation to ensure purchasing a new home in Ontario remains safe for all consumers. My ministry has heard the concerns about illegal building, and we are determined to tackle this problem. As we all know, illegal building puts consumers at risks and results in an uneven playing field for builders who operate in accordance with the law. In the coming year, my ministry will hold consultations on ways to address these unethical practices. HCRA has played a strong role in bringing rogue builders and sellers into compliance, and we look forward to continuing to hear your input as we prepare to consult on this critical issue. And so in closing, I want to thank everyone here for their service to the people of Ontario. Purchasing a home is a significant milestone for many residents of this province, and the work that you are doing strengthens protections for Ontarians looking to take this step. Thank you again for the opportunity to say a few words, and I wish you all a productive and engaging meeting.
Thank you so much, Minister McCarthy, for those very supportive remarks. The next item on the agenda is the Chair's report, and I'm pleased to deliver this. For those who are unaware, a little about me. Following a career in public policy and administration with the Ontario government and the Saskatchewan government, I had the great pleasure of joining HCRA and serving on the board since its earliest days, 2018, first as vice chair and then starting as chair in 2022. With the board's valuable support and guidance, I've seen the HCRA evolve into an established regulator of Ontario's new home construction sector, culminating in its official launch just over 3 years ago. Looking back, it is inspiring to think of what we have achieved in a few years. It's been an ongoing journey and one that has been very rewarding for me. This past year was a formative one, culminating one for the HCRA. We are still one of Ontario's newest regulators, but our organization can't be considered new anymore. We have officially moved from startup mode to a respected and an efficient regulator of Ontario new home builders sector. The HCRA continues to be a financially stable organization and prudent in its spending while ensuring it has sufficient resources to achieve its goal of improved home building. It is an industry that continues to grow with nearly 7,000 licensed builders and sellers across the province, and at the same time, with so much public interest in the housing market, it's vitally important to have strong oversight of the people and the companies building new homes in our province. As the regulator, our primary goal is supporting consumer protection, giving new home buyers confidence in what is often a life-changing decision, knowing their builder is being held to professional standards and with recourse should something go wrong. We provide consumers with valuable information so they can make informed decisions in their home buying journey. We offer multiple contact points for the public to inquire about the HCRA, its services, and to address any concerns they have with the conduct of licensed builders and sellers. Every frontline interaction shapes our role and reputation, and we continue to look for ways to enhance our services and create an accessible and helpful experience for everyone. We're proud of the progress we've made and will continue to maintain and enhance our reputation on several fronts. As a respected regulator for home builders and sellers, the licensees whose standards of professionalism we enforce, as a trusted resource for home purchasers and other consumers for whom protection and education are our top priority, and as a useful partner across the sector. As the industry continues to evolve, the HCRA will remain steadfast in assessing licensing and builder qualifications, competency, and in reviewing complaints to ensure a fair, safe, and informed marketplace. While most licensees in Ontario adhere to the HCRA's expectations, we'll stay vigilant and act appropriately against those who operate unlawfully or unethically to protect the public, which is the top priority. On behalf of our board, I do want to thank our CEO and registrar, Wendy Moore, who along with the entire senior leadership team has guided the HCRA's success and development on many fronts over this past year. Our work, of course, continues, and we're committed to making better and greater strides in the years ahead. As board chair, I want to thank all of you for your continued support in building public trust and confidence, despite challenges that we know exist in the market, and we look forward to continuing all of the collaboration in the future. It's my pleasure now to introduce Wendy Moore, our HCRA's CEO and registrar. Wendy has over 20 years of experience in the licensing and regulation of professionals, legislative and policy development, construction, housing, and consumer protection. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Mark, and good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. The past fiscal year represented the third full year since the HCRA opened its doors and the second year implementing our 2022-25 strategic plan. I'm very pleased to report the HCRA's efforts over the year contributed significantly to the accomplishment of our strategic goals. And it allowed us to start thinking beyond basic service delivery toward new goals in pursuit of our mandate to protect new home purchasers. I'd like to share some of our recent results and milestones, of which we exceeded our expected deliverables in several areas. As our organization continues to evolve, we are continuously modernizing our licensing process to make it more efficient and seamless for applicants. We also want to ensure licensing decisions reinforce high professional standards in the home building industry. In 2023-24, the HCRA received more than 7,100 license applications and renewals, which is a 6% increase from the previous year. And while the number of license applications the HCRA received increased, our processing times were consistently faster than last year's timeframe and better than our established service targets. We also implemented several improvements which streamlined our licensing process while ensuring applications continued to be thoroughly reviewed. When the HCRA first opened its doors, the startup phase of our complaints process included a high number of incoming complaints combined with new procedures and staff. We now have a bigger team, better insights, and clearer processes for the public to voice their concerns. The past year, our professional conduct team truly solidified its footing with decisions flowing at pace with incoming complaints. The HCRA is committed to reviewing and responding to every complaint we receive, giving urgent attention to those with the highest potential to harm the public. As you can imagine, each situation is unique, and every complaint must be evaluated based on the facts and its merits. The HCRA maintains principled, fair, and transparent processes and will act against dishonest and unethical conduct to protect consumers. Over the past year, the HCRA took a variety of regulatory actions in response to conduct complaints, including our announcement just earlier today laying 124 charges against a repeat offender to safeguard consumers and the industry. We also took actions such as refusing to grant a license to limit the resurgence of bad actors who demonstrate they cannot conduct their business responsibly and ethically. We froze the assets of a former licensee suspected of illegal building and selling. Revoked a license, the most severe measure we can take, prohibiting a builder from working in Ontario, but a necessary action to take for licensees to understand that there can be serious consequences for breaking the law. And I want to be clear, most of our licensees act professionally and provide good customer service. But there are exceptions, and it's our responsibility to the public to identify and address violations of the rules. The HCRA investigations team was also successful in obtaining key results when cracking down on illegal builders and sellers, one of our highest priorities. The investigations team took advantage of all the tools available to them to determine the appropriate response. This included several prosecutions, financial penalties, several compliance orders, and warning and education letters. And of course, our goal is to avoid this issue in the first place by ensuring licensees understand our licensing and conduct expectations. To support this, we developed and issued a new advisory, number 13, to all licensees, reinforcing that working with unlicensed builders and sellers is considered professional misconduct and a breach of our code of ethics. Illegal building is a major consumer protection issue in Ontario and a top priority for our organization. When this occurs, consumers do not get the protections that come from their builder being properly licensed and held to professional standards. To deter illegal building and bring rogue builders into compliance, the HCRA has grown its investigations team and continues to use all possible regulatory tools necessary. This includes working with the government and stakeholders across the sector to implement a proposed strategy to curb this activity. Ongoing outreach and education are also vitally important to deter potential wrongdoers. It's also necessary for the public to understand how they can protect themselves and have confidence in their decisions. We can highlight several successes, including enhancements to the builder directory to give new and prospective homebuyers more information when researching builders and sellers. This includes a new section on related companies, which shows consumers a summary of the license status and any regulatory actions associated within a group of companies run by the same individuals. We've also added a new banner on builder profiles that are in receivership, so homebuyers are aware when a licensee is subject to insolvency proceedings that could impact the company's financial viability. Our customer service team, our primary point of contact for the public, is also more efficient than ever, answering calls in less than a minute and finding new ways to add value to our customer experience. To raise awareness of the HCRA, we have engaged a broad range of stakeholders, such as real estate professionals and building officials, to name a few. We also connected with close to 1,000 consumers at the National Home Show in the spring. The HCRA blog, The Homefront, was among the most visited pages on our website, providing important updates to the public about our complaints process, builder conduct expectations, the builder directory, and the importance of only hiring licensed builders. Last year, the HCRA also conducted an inaugural client satisfaction survey to measure awareness and satisfaction with the services the HCRA offers to consumers and its licensees. In addition to our licensees, more than 279,000 homeowners of new freehold homes and high-rise condominiums within the last 7 years were invited to complete the survey from across the province. Our survey also engaged those who had purchased or were planning to purchase a home built. Not surprisingly, as a new regulator, the findings showed that 1 in 5 new home buyers were aware of the HCRA, which demonstrates a continued need to build awareness of our organization. We also learned that there is still confusion between our role and that of Charion, so it's vital we create more distinction there as well. Overall, I'm pleased to share that both homebuyers and licensees were satisfied with the services offered by the HCRA, including its licensing process. Over 4 in 5 consumers were confident there are adequate rules in place to protect homebuyers. Consumers and licensees also expressed a need for additional education resources, and I'm particularly pleased that the HCRA has taken an important step towards fulfilling our legislative mandate to conduct research and provide education. This effort aims to promote best practices in home construction and offer valuable educational resources to consumers. Our research and education program was launched in January 2024 with a successful gathering of more than 35 stakeholder representatives on the HCRA's inaugural Building Research and Collaboration Council. Through these partnerships, we hope to leverage existing expertise to grow the program. These are just a few highlights from the past year. I encourage everyone to read our 2023-24 annual report for more detail on these initiatives and our efforts to support a well-regulated, professional, and ethical new home building sector. With this good progress now behind us, I'm looking forward to advancing our consumer protection mandate with support from our strong board of directors, our dedicated staff, and all our stakeholders to foster even more productive relationships. Thank you. I look forward to answering any questions you may have during the question and answer period.
Thanks so much, Wendy, for your report today and for your leadership of our organization. The next item on our annual meeting agenda is the financial report. We've completed our financial year ending March 31, 2024. Members received the financial statements and the auditor's report thereon with the agenda and material for the meeting. Av Maharaj, Chair of our HCRA's Finance, Audit and Risk Committee, will provide our financial highlights.
Thanks, Mark. Can everyone hear me? Excellent. I'm pleased to report on the financial statements for the fiscal year ended March 31st, 2024. This is the third full year of operations for the HCRA that began on February 1st, 2021. The HCRA continues to manage its resources in a fiscally prudent manner to ensure that it meets its obligations to government, the public, and other stakeholders. The operating revenues for the fiscal year were derived primarily from funding for new licensing and renewal fees and per-unit oversight fees. Together, these fees accounted for approximately 85% of the total revenue of $12,890,100. The HCRA has a number of agreements with the Tarion Warranty Corporation associated with the initial startup phase of HCRA, which make up an additional $1,098,160. Revenues for 2024 were down 23% from the previous year due to lower per-unit oversight fees that the HCRA receives for each home that is enrolled. Expenses increased over the previous year to $13.365 million, primarily due to increased staffing costs as HCRA recruited to full staffing levels required to operate. This has resulted in a net deficit for the year of $475,274, which again is driven primarily from the reduced revenue received through our per-unit oversight fee. This deficit will be offset through the operating reserve fund that the HCRA has built during the past 3 years for this specific purpose. KPMG, who are the auditors for HCRA, have confirmed the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the HCRA and the results of the HCRA's operations and cash flows for the year ended March 31st, 2024. Mark?
Thanks very much, Av. Members, is there any discussion of the financials of the auditor's report thereon? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the resolution to reappoint the firm of KPMG LLP as auditor of the HCRA until the close of the next annual meeting of members? Hugh Heron so moves. Mary Cardis-Burton will second. Thanks very much, Hugh and Mary. All members, please vote by a show of hands. I declare the motion carried. Thank you. The annual report, which includes the financial statements, is posted on our website, and we're pleased we were able to share this snapshot of what has been a very productive year. The next item of the business is the election of our directors. The HCRA has 6 elected directors and 3 appointed by the Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery and Procurement. Each elected director serves a 3-year term on a staggered schedule, so the members elect 2 directors each year. The resolution before the members today is to elect Hugh Heron and Bodar Rubaszewski to serve 3-year terms as directors of the corporation. May I have a motion to approve the resolution? Virginia West will move. Salvatore Biasucci will second. Thanks, Virginia and Sam. All members, please vote by a show of hands. I declare the motion carried. Thank you. Having concluded the formal business on the agenda for today's meeting, I declare the annual meeting to be adjourned. We'll now move on to the public question and answer period. To moderate this segment, let me introduce Tess Lynn, the HCRA's Director of Communications and Stakeholder Relations. Thank you very much, Tess.
Thank you, Mark. Everyone can hear me okay? Thumbs up. So good evening. So as Mark mentioned, we are now going to open the discussion and head into our Q&A session. And because we're hybrid today, I just wanted to mention that we will take turns taking questions in the audience and online. So we have about 30 minutes. And so just a little housekeeping. So for those in the audience wishing to ask a question, we do have a microphone set up in the middle there. So I'll ask you to kindly line up for your question. And for those participating online, you should see on your screen a button to click to submit your questions. So if you want to kindly submit your questions, I will get them and I'll relay them to everyone here. And if anyone has any technical issues, please email help@livecast.ca for any assistance. And as you ask your questions, either live or written, a few points I just want to remind everyone to keep in mind, please. This is not the appropriate forum to ask specific questions on any individual cases, so please keep your questions to a general manner, as we will not be able to comment on specific ongoing matters. And also to keep the segment moving, please just ask one question at a time with no follow-ups. You're welcome to ask a second question as we have time. And again, please keep your questions brief, respecting everybody's time and those waiting in the queue. And we will absolutely get to as many questions as we can. And thank you in advance for your cooperation. And so Wendy and Marg, I wanted to share there are quite a few questions online, so perhaps we can start there. Okay. And so the first question that I have is, why is illegal building a top priority for the HCRA? What about dealing with consumers who have already filed other complaints?
I'll start. This will often be the case. I'll start with some general comments and certainly invite Wendy to follow up. Thank you, Tess, and be assured, people in room, we very much want to hear from you as well, so we will make time. Wendy, on behalf of the organization and the board, has spent a lot of time listening to consumers and to builders, licensees across the province. She's heard in various parts of our province very significant concerns about the impact of illegal building on prospective home buyers in communities in Ontario, and very much on the competitive licensees in those areas. We do think addressing illegal building is very important to create and sustain a fair marketplace, particularly when the market is as challenged as it is right now. But, you know, preeminently, we think it's so important that consumers have the opportunity to purchase their new home and be protected, to purchase their home from a licensed, trained, ethically performing builder.
Yeah, thanks. And I think what I would add to that is that I don't think it's an either-or situation. It's important to deal with both illegal building and unethical behavior from licensees. But the problem is, if you hire an unlicensed builder to build your home or buy a home from an unlicensed builder, you have essentially, you don't have the protection, not only perhaps of the warranty, but also you don't have the protection that you have when you are dealing with a licensee that is regulated by us at the HCRA under the Code of Ethics. So in fact, if you wanted to make a complaint about that builder that would normally be covered under one of the 20 things under the Code of Ethics, you wouldn't be able to make a complaint for unethical and unfair business practices because they're not under our jurisdiction to deal with under the Code of Ethics if they're unlicensed. So those two pieces really work together, and we have two teams, one to deal with investigations of illegal builders and vendors, and another one to deal with Code of Ethics violations. And those teams work very well together, and we see it as both of those things working hand in glove.
Thank you so much, Mark and Wendy. And we'll go to our first question in the audience. And can I just ask, when you ask your question, just maybe state your name and the area you're from as well. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gail Dudek from Oshawa. I have 30 years' experience as an Ontario Land Registry Office employee. I've also been a new home buyer. I found HCRA's complaint process very slow and complex. It took them 1.5 years to make a decision on our new home canceled contract. Their access to information, which they state is comparable to Freedom of Information requests, requires the wrongdoer's permission to release. The registrar's opinion in the legislation alone seems to be enough to let builders off the hook on serious complaints. Consumers can't appeal HCRA's decisions, however, builders can. HCRA appears to spend most of its time chasing unlicensed builders. HCRA reported this year they had only 1 complaint about how HCRA delivers its services, and I know of 5 others that were submitted and emailed to their complaints officer. From all indications I've seen, it points to HCRA being captured by the industry it's supposed to regulate. Can you convince me otherwise? That's it.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us again this year. And I would say from the board's point of view, understanding and monitoring the outcomes of our complaints process is critically important. It's part of our job. Wendy and her team have shared very openly and transparently the protocols and the risk approach taken to address complaints in a thorough, very well-informed, and as timely a way as possible. Understanding some of these files are complex, and it will always feel like too long a time to consumers. We do believe improvements have been made. This is an organization that has to focus on continuous improvement. Do we have a ways to go? Are we trying to better address our performance standards? We sure are. So I really appreciate it. Wendy, anything further?
Yeah, I think that's really fair. I mean, I don't think we ever tried to hide the fact that we needed to grow our complaints department. We have done that. We have made tremendous strides in improving our processes. So the complaints that we received earlier on in the first couple of years, they did take longer than they should have. And for instance, when we look at our statistics, last year we were resolving complaints at less than 50%. So it was not one in and one out. Now we're at about 60%. So we have made some improvements as a result of us adding resources to the team. And also I think the processes and the streamlining speed things up. So certainly if you had made a complaint in the early days, which you maybe did take 1 year or more to resolve, I could see how that would be a less than satisfactory process for you. But hopefully, as Mark says, we are a continually learning organization. We are making strides to improve that. And I think the proof will be in the pudding, Gail. So I may not be able to convince you that we are doing better yet. And I know that your particular experience with that was not what you wanted. But I hope in time that you will see how hard we are trying and how hard we are working for consumers.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll just go to our next question from our online attendees. And so this question is, when it comes to illegal home building, fines and penalties are often rather low, a few $1,000s in some cases. So the question is the HCRA looking into heftier fines or penalties for illegal building and selling?
Yes, we sure are. Yeah, so there's 2 ways that a builder could be fined. One is through the typical prosecution process when it's actually a court that levies the fine. And those sometimes are on the low side. although I'm quite pleased to say that even through our prosecutions, we have been able to set a bar that is much higher than what you would normally get for a first-time prosecution. But the real game changer was the introduction of administrative monetary penalties. And those penalties not only can be quite high, up to $50,000 in some cases per infraction, but there's also there's a piece of that legislation called monetary benefit penalties. And what that allows us to do, if we can find evidence that a builder benefited from their bad behavior, we can take the amount of that benefit and actually levy that amount so that then it doesn't just become, $10,000, that's the cost of doing business. They will actually be able to, and we have actually issued some very significant penalties that are going through the appeal process now in the millions of dollars that will make it not, it will make a difference to those people who think that they can get away with that bad behavior and not be penalized for it. So I think it'll be interesting to see how those decisions that we've made fairly recently are seen by the Licensing Appeal Tribunal.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Wendy. And we'll go to our next question. So again, state your name and the area that you're from. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Nina Deeb. I'm from Kitchener, Ontario. I've been a full-time real estate broker since 1996. I've never bought a new home, so I'm not your consumer, so I'm a stakeholder. I'm here on behalf of my clients that pay you. I'd like to go to your financial statements. There's something very revealing here on page 41. So the per unit oversight fees for 2024 are only $6,369,754. This per unit fee is $145 paid for by home buyers. And this is $4.4 million less than the previous year, which indicates a very serious decline in the homes being built. This indicates there are over 30,000 fewer homes that were built in this province, that this is what you're anticipating for the year, which actually seemed to have triggered your non-payment to carry on for the loan that was given to you for your startup. That's what it appears to. Can you explain to me why your human resources have gone up almost $2 million when your revenues are going down $4 million? This isn't, no business would ever do this. I know there are many business owners amongst your board of directors. Nobody would run this business their business in this way. You're a consumer protection agency. You should be cutting your staff. You don't have the revenue for your operations. Why is your human resources, why are you increasing your human resources while your revenues are decreasing?
Nina, thank you. And I'll just say you've raised a very important conversation and you've done your homework. So what you've stated is the case that, of course, our per unit revenues for the year were less than we anticipated, and that all has to do with the enrollment of homes, home building activity. So we know there has been a downturn this year upcoming. We'll wait and see what happens, but we're not anticipating the kind of enrollments we saw in 2022 or 23. I would say two things. We, like any organization such as ours and any business, in our startup years, we knew for the kind of cycles you can expect in the industry, we needed to be planful and ensure we had an appropriate reserve. And we did that. We followed the leads from other organizations. Any strong business plans for, depending on the business it's in, what we know to be the cycles. So we are confident. We've been planful. We had a small-ish proportionately deficit this year, and it is manageable. We are very watchful about what's going to happen in the year ahead, and we will be prudent in using our operating reserve as needed. Now, you talk about expenditures, you read well. In 22-23, we were very carefully assessing the staff complement we had and our service standards we were able to meet. We received feedback, we've had conversations already this evening, about not being able to provide timely service. In this last fiscal year, the fiscal year we've just reported on, 23-24, our CEO and organization advised our board, in order to improve the timeliness of the licensing process, the complaints process, ensure solid enforcement, we did need to proceed to get to the staffing levels we initially planned to have. That's what happened in 23-24. We are now very much of the view we are at stable state. We are not anticipating any growth in our organization. We live in a sector, we live in a regulatory world where the volume of complaints does not necessarily reflect the decline in enrollments, if you know what I mean. We're going to, the complaint level is fairly steady. So I hope I've been clear. We're prudent, we're watchful, we're using the reserve we have in place carefully for its purpose. That's what it's there for. The industry members on our board know and have lived the number of cycles. But on the expenditure side, I would just say we are being very cautious. We're confident. We're at a good state right now in terms of investigating team, licensing team, and we aren't in a growth mode this year in any way.
Thank you so much, Marg. And we'll go to our next question from an online participant. So the question is, why is there not a clear or public timeline on how long an investigation might take?
Well, the answer to that is pretty straightforward, and that is because all the complaints are quite different, and there is no way to really tell how long something is going to take. We need to make sure that we've done a proper and thorough investigation or inspection of whatever the matter is, whether it's a legal building or a complaint under the Code of Ethics, that requires us to get our evidence in order. Sometimes that takes some time, because we want to make sure that if we're going to take an action against either a licensee for a Code of Ethics violation or an unlicensed builder, that it's going to stick. And that takes time. That takes resources, especially for the more serious the matter, the longer it's going to take. But we need to put the proper resources and the proper time to it to get to that success. So sometimes it can be a very quick decision. It's usually a quick decision when it's a no. It doesn't fall within our jurisdiction. But the more serious matters definitely take longer. And of course, it also depends on what kind of volume we get at any time. And we cannot predict that, as Mark said. It's not even based on the economy. So I think that's the short answer. What we've done instead, we have taken some other measures and some other metrics. For example, we've introduced a new process so that we will get back to all new complainants within 3 to 5 days to get more information. And we also connect more with complainants on a regular basis. Those are new things that we've implemented. And also the piece that I was talking about before, which is we are trying at the very minimum to resolve as many complaints as we get in, so that we are not increasing our backlog. In fact, when we have a 60% success rate, we are decreasing our backlog. So we use those as kind of a proxy for timeliness when we really cannot give specific timelines for complaint resolution, just due to the complexity of the matters.
Thank you, Wendy. And we'll go to the next audience. Again, name and where you're from.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jennifer Lefebvre from Clearview Township. I actually just have a couple of follow-up questions on some questions you've already answered. So Gail here had asked, the builders have the right to appeal. So there is no option for a buyer to appeal an outcome on a complaint,
Like on a code of ethics complaint?
on a code of ethics
Yeah,
complaint?
so, I mean, it's interesting because really when you're complaining, and this is true of all regulatory bodies, any person can complain, make a complaint. It doesn't have to be the person that's actually affected. Any member of the public, we have building officials, we have builders making complaints about other builders sometimes. But in actual fact, the complainant isn't a party to the matter. It's between the HCRA, sort of as the prosecutor, and the licensee. So so a complainant doesn't really, it's not like a court, right? Where we've got two parties and we are actually resolving the dispute between the parties. Although having said that, we do try to informally resolve disputes between parties and successfully as often as we can.
Okay, is the buyer not the person that the ethical infraction was done on? So should they not have the right to dispute your outcome? If they do not agree with it?
That is not how the legislation is set up, and it really isn't for any regulatory body.
Okay.
Because really, when you're complaining, and sometimes if you're complaining, the outcome, I mean, if we fine a builder $5,000, that doesn't actually help you. But what it might do if it did, or hopefully more than that, what it might do if we're trying to deter bad behavior through our regulatory proceedings, part of the reason you're complaining, and when you think about if you complain about a doctor or a teacher or a dentist, it's the same thing. You're actually doing it for the benefit of all consumers, not just yourself.
Absolutely.
So that they don't hurt future people.
Of course.
Yeah.
The other question I have, now, I previously worked at TELUS Mobility, and I understand scaling your departments, metrics, things like that. You would have metrics on timelines of how long different outcomes would take to investigate. So there should be some sort of policy put in place on average outcomes to investigate. Is that not something that you're working on? So, Jane, that's investigating an illegal builder, doesn't take 2 years to find the outcome of this illegal builder, so that they have some sort of rough timeline that they're working on, that they don't take their time. I mean, everybody should have some sort of policy in place, an idea of when this investigation should end.
Well, as I said, I think for simpler matters, that could be the case, and for the more complex ones, they're also different. And keep in mind, we haven't been doing this for very long. I think, maybe once we've been in business for 10 years, we might be able to see more of those patterns. But there's so many different complaints every day.
But this is something that you should be tracking now. To see, like, you should be able to put this into a database and bring it up and see how long these are taking, what kind of investigation it is, pull it up and see how long they're taking, so you can see averages.
Well, as I said, maybe in the future we'll be able to come up with something a little.
But it should be starting now. Like, it shouldn't be starting in the future. That's how you build your data.
There's accountability.
Yes.
For sure, right? So we have managers, they know how long their staff are taking. They're not sitting on files by any means.
Okay.
We have a huge amount of files coming in, and they're a very hardworking team, I can assure you of that.
I'm not disputing that at all. I thank you for that. Those were my follow-up questions, and my question to you.
Sorry, I'm just going to have to ask, we move on.
I would like to ask my question. Those were just my follow-ups for previous questions. So you say that you want to protect consumers. When a company under new management of one person. So these new companies that you're putting their, under your website, they get revoked or they have fines, but they open a new company under a new business name. How is that protecting somebody from buying a new home from a builder under a new name that has previously
Actually, that's a
had-
great question, Tess, so I will answer that.
Thank you.
Because it's a common misconception that happens, because it does happen. It happens in other circumstances, it happens in other businesses. It does not happen at the HCRA. You cannot start up a new company and leave your bad behavior behind. Because when we track those companies, we also track the principals and the directors and the officers of those companies. And if they try to start up a new company, they cannot, because we know what they've done. We're tracking it. And in fact, we have a very good example of that this year when one of our revoked licensees tried to start up a new company under his daughter. And
Okay.
we denied
I
it.
actually did see that, but have you tracked in the past? So people who have done things years ago, maybe in 15
Yeah, we do
or
have
things?
we have a process for
Okay.
tracking previous activities, whether it be bankruptcies, criminal activities, all of that. So,
Okay, and is-
I think we will ask,
Okay, thank you.
Thank
For the
you
next
very much.
question,
And
though.
Tess,
Thank you.
I just am going to do a check on our process. How long are our online participants able to be joining us? Can we keep them on for a while?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's great, because I'm prepared certainly to extend the time somewhat, but I don't want to disadvantage the people. So you
Thank
go ahead
So I'll
with an-
go ahead
with
the
an
next-
online question, please.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And so we've been talking about complaints a little bit, so this question I think is a great one. I'm just looking for clarification. So if I have a complaint about my builder, should I contact both the HCRA and Tarion, or how should this person maybe proceed?
yeah, that's a good question, because it goes to that confusion that people have between the HCRA and Tarion. And I think especially in the early days, we got a lot of complaints that really were claims that should have gone to Tarion, because they were about deficiencies and defects. So the HCRA, we regulate the builder. Tarion is the backstop for the warranty. So that process is still in place. So if you have a problem with your home, with the actual construction of your home, there's still a process that folks should be going to Tarion to deal with that claim if their builder hasn't dealt with it. We do not want to duplicate that process. So if it's more about the behavior of the builder or the competency, if you're concerned about the overall competency, maybe you've had problems with the behavior of the builder, or you have concerns about their financial viability, you can come to the HCRA.
Thank you. And we'll go to the next audience questions. Again, name and where you're from. And again, just a reminder, because we are very close to the end of the time, perhaps just ask your question rather than asking any follow-up questions and then your question. So please go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Nora Rosemont, and on page 22, you say getting information for the public is the way you identify violations of the rules. This puts a big burden on consumers who are often fearful of retaliation by builders for speaking out about abuses or violations of the Code of Ethics. Why not be proactive before you license builders and make sure they have the competence, track record, finances, and ethics to be licensed? And what if a family member takes over the father's building company or is a director, for example, of the company? Is that person automatically included under the father's HCR license despite his competence or level of competence?
That seems like a two-part question, so I'm just going to try. So the last part, definitely. So if the company itself has to hold the competency, so if, in the example you gave, the father was still there and had the competencies, that would be fine. But if, for example, somebody took over, like say a son or daughter took over the company, they would also have to show that they were competent.
But if the father is still there and the son is building houses without all the, what he needs for what you talk about, all the happy talk about licensing and courses at Algonquin College, et cetera, how can we be confident that we have a licensed, competent, educated builder?
We do hold the licensee responsible for anything that their employees does, and that would include if their son was working for them. And if their son is not up to par, the father will take responsibility for that. The way the legislation is set out is not that every employee has to have all of the competencies. The company as a whole has to have the competencies. And sorry, could you repeat the first part of the question again?
And the first part was, on page 22, you have, that you get information for the public, from the public to identify
Oh,
violations.
yes, you were talking.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, we do, but we certainly also, I mean, that's if something falls between the cracks and it turns out that there is a problem with the builder, we have the complaints process. But absolutely, there are competencies, 7 core competencies as well as financial viability and history of good behavior. And we have a thorough licensing process before we would ever issue a license to anybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll just continue to proceed with one online question. And the question is, how does the HCRA work with municipalities to prevent unlicensed builders and sellers?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. We certainly encourage municipalities to report concerns that they see with builders to us, and we get a number of complaints directly from municipalities. In fact, I was just at a conference of the large municipalities of Ontario this week, and we were talking about exactly that thing, encouraging municipalities to work with us. So they're one of our important stakeholders, and we work closely together.
Thank you. And we'll go to you. And again, name and where you're from.
My name is Wendy, and I'm from Toronto. Earlier, you said that before you buy a house and it's a new build, that you should find out if the builder's licensed. Well, first of all, nobody even knows about Terry-On before you buy a house. That's, and your real estate agent isn't going to tell you, and your real estate lawyer is never going to tell you. So who even knows to look for a license?
Yeah, that's a great question. Did you?
Well, I just
feel like you
wanted,
wanted to
I
comment
do, I just would say it is a great question. And we have a lot of aspirations to improve this situation by working with those partners. So the real estate industry.
Those partners aren't interested in
Yeah.
talking about Terry-On and licensing because they'll lose the buy.
I hear you. I'll just say.
That's all they care about.
Yeah.
Is getting the listing and getting the money.
Yeah.
End of story. So that's not going to work.
It is. It is. I'm hearing your perspective about their end game, but our responsibility, which we take very seriously, is finding every way we can to help inform consumers, to help them know. And we are doing what we can to put ourselves out there. Wendy and her team meeting, speaking at events, getting information out to the real estate industry and beyond. So I do hear your concern. How do consumers know? And, we take all the advice we can. Yeah.
Okay, so also back to that licensing question.
Sorry, we do have a very long queue, as you can see, and we did ask to
Well, it's along the
keep.
same lines. I'm talking about licensing. Just let me ask this one thing, because that doesn't make sense, what you told Nora there. That if there's a son that went ahead and did his own project, had nothing to do with his father, and he's using the license number of his father, you said that was fine.
No, I didn't say that, no.
It sounded like it.
No,
So
I
then he
said if
doesn't
he's
have a
working in the
license.
company that is licensed. He has to be working in the licensed company. He could be working for his father in the license. That
He's
was my
n-
understanding
Okay,
of the
well, he's
question.
not working for his father. He's gone out on his own.
Oh, well, he would have
And
to be,
he's
he'd have
using
to
the
have his own
license number of
competencies.
his father. He's.
Oh, well,
so-
then his father would be in violation of the Code of Ethics for allowing that.
Well, even the son has got a million violations of the conduct, too. So, you know, what I think is that you need to prioritize a lot of your complaints. So if somebody complains and says, I want to know if this guy, you know, this isn't his license, and, you know, does he have a license or not? Then you really need to jump on that because that's your main thing. So, you know, otherwise somebody says, oh, you know, he wasn't nice to me. Okay, well, you know, put that one aside and look to see why this guy, this other guy, you know, they don't know if he has a license or not, you know, find out. How can we
I
find?
think I did mention that earlier during my report as well, as we do have a risk-based approach to complaints. So absolutely, we focus
Timelines are
on the
really
ones
important
that are
in some things like
most-
your mainstream of being.
Yep,
So-
okay, thank you so much for your comment, and we will move forward with another question, which is, how does the HCRA ensure that all builder data provided by Tarion are accurate? This includes details on chargeable conciliations and any claims. So I assume this question is about the information that is available on the Ontario Builder Directory.
Right. Yes, well, I mean, the answer to that question is that Tarion is responsible for its own data. I mean, I suppose Tarion could have its own builder directory, and we could have our own builder directory. I think it does make most sense for consumers to have all of the information in one directory. But it would be an absolute drain on the HCRA resources if we were responsible for double-checking data that Tarion, which is its own delegated administrative authority and responsible to the Ministry of Public and Service Business Delivery, it really wouldn't make sense.
Thank you, Wendy. And I just want to be respectful of everybody's time, so just flagging that we are over the 30-minute question period, but as our chair has kindly shared that, we'll probably take one more question from the audience, and I'll take one more question online after this. So with that, please do go ahead with your question. Again, just reminder, name and where you're from, and again, keep it brief because this is going to be the final question.
My name is Barbara Captain. I've been an independent consumer advocate for the last 15 years. I'd like to ask you why did you report in your annual report that there's been an 87% increase in illegal building over the past year? If you're a consumer protection agency, surely you should have mentioned that today and outlined your action plan. We've heard the minister say he's going to do consultations. We've heard Tarion, as previous regulator, for decades say that they're going to clamp down on builders building without being licensed or without perhaps even having the competencies to do so. Now, I don't know any other professional regulation which allows either engineers to go out posing as engineers when they are not, or lawyers posing as lawyers when they are not, or doctors posing as doctors when they are not. But we have an 87% increase last year in builders posing as builders, licensed builders, when they are not. I think you own that problem now. We can't pass it off to Tarion, you can't pass it off to consumers. I think you own it, and I don't know why you didn't mention that today. I think it's extremely concerning for consumer protection.
Thank you, Barbara. Yes, so I just want to clarify that the 87% is an increase in complaints of illegal building. I think part of that is greater awareness and the work that we've been doing with stakeholders to make sure that they report what they see out there. So it's hard to say whether it's an 87% increase in actual illegal building. But yes, I mean, I think we've been very transparent and I said in my report, as did Mark, that illegal building is a major concern in Ontario, and it's one of our biggest priorities in tackling it. We are working with the government, and you heard the minister say that there will be a consultation in the upcoming year, and we very much look forward to that. In the meantime, we're doing what we can with the tools we have. We laid 124 charges today. That story is in the Toronto Star. But we're looking forward to a process that would be more proactive instead of just reacting, so that we're not spending so many resources chasing illegal building that's already happened. Try to prevent it before it happens. We agree with you. It is a problem, and we're very much committed to solving it.
Thank you so much, Wendy. And we'll just go to our final question. And the question is, what recommendations have the Consumer Advisory Council made to the board?
I'll start with that. Thanks very much, Tess, and the online participant. The Consumer Advisory Council is an excellent source of advice and information for our board and for the HCRA. We meet with them on an annual basis and hear their annual report. We always receive, as board members, copies of their minutes and their engagement. Their mandate is predominantly to provide advice on the kind of information that would best serve consumers. And they've helped us very much in refining, help Wendy and her team, the builder directory by way of example. They also engage on key issues that arise that they know are concerns to consumers, and bring those forward to us. They hear about illegal building. They offer us advice on illegal building. So they're excellent partners, as is the members on our Industry Advisory Council as well.
Thank you so much.
Builders, I know at least 5 builders, they buy the home, they get permit, they build it, they live in it for 1 year and resell it. And how are you going to stop this? Like, I also have electrical contracting license. They don't allow people to touch electricity. They say you must hire a licensed electrical contractor. Shouldn't be, like, homeowners should not be allowed or be expected to know how to build a home. It requires a lot of expertise in different fields. That's my question. Question 1.
I can answer, shall I answer that question first? Yes? Your question is whether they should be able to.
Homeowners,
Yeah, I mean,
and why can they
the
be
thing
allowed
is,
to
if
build
you're
homes?
legitimately building a home for yourself, that is fairly typically allowed in many, many jurisdictions. The
Yes.
problem is if they're not really doing that, right? If they're just building and flipping, or if they're hiring an unlicensed builder but pretending that they're building it themselves. And I couldn't agree with you more. It's a problem. We need, and are working with the government to look into that. In fact, when Minister McCarthy mentioned that before, this owner-builder loophole, we could call it, is exactly what he was talking about and what we have been talking to the government about, strengthening the legislation to deal with that.
Thank you.
Today, you mentioned over 7,000 registered licensed builder. They are producing about 90,000 housing units per year, but requirements is 150,000 minimum. If I have invented a method to produce 100,000 housing unit, better quality, 30% to 70% cheaper, what happens to all those 7,000 builders? They are going to be my enemies? You are going to allow me to do that or no? you will be out of business too. I mean,
Yeah. I think that speaks to the integrity of our licensing system.
yes.
And if there are new licensees, which there apparently are, they meet our competency standards, join the marketplace and build. Yeah.
I should be okay to build 100,000, one builder, equal to 7,000 builder, because the method is
As a
different.
regulator, we don't regulate the marketplace, right?
Yes.
We just regulate the
But
competency of builders.
Yes, but the builders, there are 7,000 builders, they cannot match. They cannot quality-wise and price-wise, and speed-wise. So
It's interesting, actually, when you look at those 7,000 builders,
a lot of them are
there's
don't.
quite a variety.
They're not
Some
that-
of them don't enroll at all. They have a license. Some of them build custom homes. It's quite a variety of what they do. So I think that there will probably always, at least in the near future, be a need for a variety of different builders, even though there are definitely some big builders already out there building the majority of the houses.
Thank you very much for allowing me.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much to giving the time. So one of my question is already you asked that let me introduce myself. My name is Kashif, and I am civil structural engineer, also a builder as well. So I'm developing one small subdivision, and that I realize what are the gaps that the HCRA has to improve to protect the buyer. For example, your inspector come on the site, but there is no reporting system that need to be submitted by the builder to the HCRA. For example, either the concrete is, what kind of concrete they are using as a builder, the soil compaction is done or not done, and what kind of the windows they are using. Because being an engineer, I realize that some of the contractors or builders came after 6 years and they say their windows are not as per the standard, and the SCR and carry on, put the claim on the builder. So why not these things need to be addressed during the construction time, and to protect the buyer, and not after 5 years, 6 years when these complaints started, like the foundation is settled down, the cracks in the foundation. So why not we have to protect during the construction time and give the quality product to the buyers? This is my suggestion, and
Yeah, I think that might be a better suggestion for Tarion, because they're the ones that do the inspections on site of the homes. They're the ones that are doing the backstop and the underwriting for the actual warranty on the homes. As I'd mentioned, we regulate the builder, not the project. Having said that, one of the things that I'd mentioned earlier is our research and education program. And definitely we are working with Tarion as well as building officials and builders on the technical research part of our program to really help develop best practices in construction and educate builders to do better. So the kinds of things that you're talking about are definitely the kinds of things that we're looking at as part of our research and education program. It's not on a house-by-house basis.
Yeah, and especially for the, the homeowner builders that are making, they don't use the quality things. They just use and build it, because when I go for the inspection, I ask them, so they say they are allowed to do the construction.
Okay.
So this is the thing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any online questions, or are we just dealing with the?
I think, I think
the
we'll
room?
shift
Okay.
and try and get the people in queue. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Alex Patinos. I'm a consumer and homeowner. I have a real question in regard to the building directory, and in the format it's in, if it's even valid. In fact, it's misleading and dangerous. This was highlighted when Tarion was managing the building directory. It is no more accurate today, and in fact, dangerous, misleading, and puts all of the directors in liability, because homeowners could sue all of the directors of HCRA and the management, because it is misleading. I'll give you examples. Tridel, 12,200 possessions, zero charges, $0. Heathwood Homes, congratulations, 499 possessions, 0 charges, 0 conciliations. Mattamy Homes, 876, same thing. I could go on and on and on, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Dangerous, misleading, inaccurate, useless. Those were the comments 10 years ago by the Toronto Star. In fact, there's one horrible builder in this room, Saldan Developments by Salvatore Biasici. He has a charge. One of the worst builders on your website.
Sorry, do you have a question?
Yes, so the question is, what is the point of your builder directory? Will you do anything to actually make it useful, or is it going to be, it's either in Ontario we have the best builders in the world, that there's no need for HCRA, or there is a severe problem with your directory?
Well, you're talking about Tarion data, right?
No, I'm talking, you can pull whatever data you want.
No, I cannot. The conciliation data that you're talking about comes directly from Tarion. There's lots of other information there that's absolutely critical for homeowners, and I would not suggest at all that homeowners should not look at the OBD. For one thing, if you're going to hire a builder, you should know whether they're licensed. What you're talking about is one specific piece of the builder directory and something that this board is not responsible for. That information comes from Tarion. And I'm sure you've talked to Tarion about it as well. But there's lots of other things, like wouldn't you want to know if your builder has had a history of illegal building? Wouldn't you want to know if your builder is in receivership? These are all really good pieces of information that we have added to the builder directory.
And nothing shows up on the builder directory. So it is useless, misleading, and dangerous to homeowners.
Sorry, can we just go to the next, and so might you be able to give somebody else a chance to ask their question? Just because, due to time. Thank you.
So mine's a quick question. NDAs are still being used by some builders regarding disclosure and extra costs and settlements that are made. What's being done to stop these NDAs? A good builder doesn't need an NDA. Non-disclosure agreement.
And the question is what's being done
So,
to stop them?
Example, a builder has to disclose their extra costs if they want to charge you extra money, but a builder wants to use an NDA, so you can't talk about it to anybody. The same thing with a settlement. If they build your house for less money, you have to sign an NDA. If they build your house for more money, you have to sign an NDA. Why?
Well, yeah, so I think what we would look at, I mean, I think NDAs have come up in certain complaints situations, and if they are either illegal or unethical, then we would have a concern. So we would have to look at the individual situation.
Okay.
Tom, let me go ahead. Anyway, Gail from Oshawa again, and I just have a recommendation to begin with. Because I worked at Land Registry, they had law statements. Lawyers made law statements because they were having issues as well. So the lawyer could make a law statement on a schedule of a contract or an addendum to state that the builder is licensed by Tarion and HCRA and has an enrollment. And then the purchaser's lawyer could make it also agree, look and agree, so you wouldn't have to be chasing all these builders around forever. That's how it's dealt with after a deal is closed. So why can't you deal with it before? Get lawyers involved. They sign subdivision agreements, et cetera. So just a suggestion, something to think about. But my real question is, when is HCRA going to follow up on the auditor's 2019 Tarion audit? It's been 5 years, not seeing HCRA establishing or releasing clear consequences for builders who breach code of conduct, or sufficient resources to complete investigations in a timely manner. So more just clear consequences, because I see may, expect, can, but I don't see this is what we're doing, you can't do it because of this. Nothing clear cut.
Yeah, I would encourage you to look at our advisories because we have, I think we're quite clear on The advisories are set out to actually provide guidance to the builders and what the consequences might be. But really, the proof is in the pudding, right? So when you look at the decisions that have been made, that you can see on the Ontario Builder Directory, and that we're making on a regular basis. I mean, the most serious consequence can be loss of license. I mean, we've seen that, right? So that's a pretty clear consequence for breaching a code of ethics. And we will continue to do work on that and provide guidance, not only to the builders, but also to consumers, so that you know what to expect from the builders and you know what you can expect from us as the regulator. Thank you.
How are we doing on time, Tess?
It is nearly 7 o'clock.
Yeah, so we'll take a question or so. That's, I'm just trying to be respectful of everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah.
My pleasure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Rakosovic. I'm a member of Provincial Parliament for Humber River Black Creek. I'm the official opposition critic for consumer protection. I want to thank you for hosting the meeting. I also want to thank the chair for extending the time to 7 as it is, as you had actually listed. And I would encourage you in the future, you know, as a member of Provincial Parliament, I'm able to make some phone calls to yourself and other regulators. And I know members of the public, in some cases, travel large distances and might not have the type of access that an elected representative might have in terms of reaching out. So I would encourage you to, in the future, have more time for questions back and forth. I know that you provided many answers today. And in the time that's left, I just wanted to take this opportunity in a public space to just share a little bit of what I've been hearing as the critic with you. And it's a lot of the things that we heard today. I continue to hear complaints about the builder directory. I think we all agree, including yourself, that it should be clear. It should be set out in such a way that when a person is making a purchase of a new home, which is probably the largest purchase of their life, that they are very confident that they have all the information that's necessary to understand the builder and the builder's history. Proactive inspections. In an ideal world, there would never be a need for warranties. And so when homes are being constructed at the point of construction, if there is sufficient oversight at that point, then I think a lot of the problems downstream wouldn't occur. I know that this is something difficult, but I'm hoping that the regulator is putting the pressure on the government itself and underscoring how important this is. The rising use of NDAs, I know, again, that was just heard a couple questions prior to this. I do have concerns with NDAs being used to silence complaints, and sometimes it can be very intimidating, and I know many of the consumer advocates who have been fighting for this may themselves have had to have signed NDAs at some point in time, and what that does is that also takes away from the transparency from other people who wouldn't know because of the use of the NDA, especially if it's being used to shield wrongdoing or some sort of irregularity from regulators like yourself or a home warranty provider. As well, and you mentioned this, and this was another question about the rise of unlicensed construction. And that is obviously something very concerning, and it is very difficult for consumers as well. They don't know who is licensed and who isn't unlicensed, and I know that you acknowledge that. And the final point is, and this is something I raised in estimate committees yesterday, the government, from all of its administrative authorities, asks you for an oversight fee. And so I'm hoping for the oversight that you pay, that they listen to you as well. And when you hear from the public, when you have suggestions to be made to the government, I hope that they're listening to those suggestions. And my phone and my door is open as well. If you feel that not enough is being done or that legislation could change so that your work as a regulator could allow you to better protect the people of Ontario, please call me. I am very open to drafting legislation, always when it comes to consumer protection. So I want to thank you for that. Okay.
So I'll just say thank you for being here and representing those views. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Great. Should we take the last question and then, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking my question today. My name is Michelle, and this is my first time coming to this session. I'm very interested to see what is happening in our development world, and I give you much compliments. This is not an easy area to manage, especially when you're pushed up against a strong desire to have X amount of homes built and maybe not all the appropriate resources. In saying so, on the vein of consumer protection, I've been asking questions at the back of your staff, so I apologize for that. I didn't think I would make it up to the mic. I'm very curious because I also work in a consumer protection, heavily consumer protected industry. I am wondering on two fronts. One, the penalties and whether or not you have the ability to increase those penalties under your jurisdiction so that they are more disincentivized, if I can use that, so that maybe builders will think twice when they go outside of the lines. And then two, I'm curious to know not so much who are your investigators, but maybe how the investigation process works. In the respect that, you know, and please forgive me, I did not read everything that I should have before coming here. Is it 1, 2, 3, 1,000 complaints that will trigger an investigation? And then based on that investigation, are these investigators that are actually outside of the organization? So they are trained, they are part of the investigation association, and therefore they have some concrete way of designing their documentation. So should we go to court, we don't have a challenge that perhaps the investigation documentation doesn't rise to the expectation of the courts, whether that's a tribunal or Supreme Court.
So thank you, Michelle. I'll do the
welcome.
first bit, and Wendy will briefly do the second bit on investigations. On the fines and penalties thresholds, we rely on our legislation and regulations to set those. We do not, we have discretion within those limits, but those limits are set. And as Wendy noted, I'll just say, we were very pleased 18 months ago when the government gave us the authority to issue administrative penalties, which is a way of getting some resolution for the consumer. So that's the part on the fine levels. And on the investigation approach, Wendy?
Well, our investigators are in-house. They're well-trained. We also have the benefit of a statutory director who is a lawyer and is very experienced, and she actually reviews all of the investigators' work before it would ever go to court. So we're actually, and we have a strong in-house legal team as well. So between our trained investigators and our legal team, we're in very good shape to be successful, as you say, when we put a
Should you go? Let's use that word, should you go?
Yeah,
Should you have to
exactly.
go?
But yeah, I mean, you did ask a question about what does it take for an investigation to happen? And we have a framework, we have a risk-based framework that sort of gives us guidance as to which ones should go first. But we look at all complaints, let's be clear. We look at all complaints and all merits. It's just the more serious ones will just happen first. But it's not a yes or a no. If it's within our jurisdiction, we will look at the complaint.
And then
Michelle, I was just going to say,
I was just curious to see if any, I know you had said that you're managing your staffing budget and you're not planning to increase, but does that also speak to your investigators? Are you planning, with the numbers that we're expecting to build, I'm just looking at the ratio of complaints versus houses versus investigators and caseloads, would that be a consideration that you might want to revisit?
I mean, certainly in the future, we will look at our revenues and we will look at our expenditures. Right now, we are at steady state, so we're pleased
Okay,
with where
not
we are.
at the current time.
thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. And Tess, on behalf, thank you to you. And
Thank you.
thank you to all participants, those who have been online and everyone in the room. And we very much appreciate the questioning and the advice we've received today.
And yes, and with that, we'll bid everybody good night.
Yes. Thank you,
Thanks,
folks.
everyone.